Hello, everybody. We got a new month here, June the 1st. Mike and Matt here with you on this Monday, episode number 36. We said we'd do 40, so this is kind of emotional week, our final week here, Matt. We don't know what the future of the show looks like, but we're happy and proud of the work that we've done for 35 episodes, and the next 5, I'm going to be damn proud of those too. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, Mike, we're on the home stretch here, following up the first set of guaranteed episodes, so it's going to be another great week here. We got more great guests on tap, and can't wait to have some more great chats with you.
Yeah, you know, today's guests we're very close to, and he and his group over at the United States Bowling Congress have been very kind to myself and all of us here at Inside Bowling, that's for sure. And our guest today is going to be Chad Murphy. And, you know, we could have had him on very early because he's a snap decision. Sure, I'll come on because he loves doing things like this. And, you know, why did it take so long to get Chad on the show? And sometimes you just don't know why. You know, you just when we game plan for the week, there's a game plan, but not much of a game plan at the same time. You know, Chad offers so much perspective on not only bowling but on life. You know, he's one of the first guys I call if I need some sort of decision opinion on something that I'm considering or whatever it may be. And I cherish that opportunity and that relationship with him. And I find it really interesting that Chad's on the program today, Matt, after the things that happened over the weekend. And I was really struggling with this morning with wanting to do this show. Not the fact that we're going to do the show, but the certain sense of responsibility that you and I have by doing a daily show, like a morning show. It's an afternoon show on the East Coast, but we're here to talk bowling, and we're here to just have a great time and talk about how all this coronavirus stuff is. We're starting to see some into the tunnel here, some light at the end of the tunnel, and all these positive things, and have this great conversation with Chad here today. But it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right if on today, June the 1st, 2020, if you're listening on an archive podcast episode, what happened over the weekend and what happened last week in regards to the incident in Minnesota, which is tragic and horrible, and I'm outraged over it. Being a white human being, Caucasian, male, I have no idea the struggle. I have no idea what that's like, nor can I even try to imagine what that's like. I have no idea. But to see what's happening in all of our cities across the United States with places being burnt down and with the looting and the protests and the police officers having things thrown at them. It's just been a rough weekend. It's been a really, really rough weekend. I live in Ogden, Utah, and in Salt Lake City, Utah. You know, it's one of the less crime cities in the United States, and I haven't seen any sort of rioting or even picketing or anything like that here since I've moved here 7 years ago. And to turn on the news and to see a car flipped upside down on fire and fights breaking out in the streets, I didn't know where I was. I just didn't know where I was. So I don't know how much we're going to talk about this today, but to everyone out there that is living in your city, I hope that you are safe, and I hope that you are doing what you need to do to stay safe, as if a pandemic wasn't enough. You know, if a pandemic wasn't enough. How are things where you're at, Matt? Was there anything over the weekend that was close to you? Are you and your family okay?
Yeah, everybody in my family, thankfully, is safe. All the stuff. Thankfully, we're about 45 minutes, probably closer to an hour drive from New York City, and that's where all of the protests are happening. And yeah, it's a very sad time. My heart and my prayers and thoughts go out to all of the people that have had loved ones taken from them. And again, Mike, you said it. As a Caucasian male myself, I think it's important for us to stand up for what's right, to stand up for the people that are being mistreated in the world. And I think it's important that we educate ourselves on how we can go forward and how we can make an impact, and how we can be educated to make the lives of other people better. And I think it's in my heart, and my prayers and thoughts also go out to those people who are having their businesses and their livelihoods affected by this. Like you said, the coronavirus presented a huge obstacle for a lot of people, and now yet another obstacle is put in front of them as well. So my heart and my prayers to everybody that's been affected by everything that's going on right now. It's truly a difficult time for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, if you'd have said to me in January of this year, as we turned into the new century here, the 2020, if we'd be sitting here June the 1st, and you and I would be on episode 36 of a daily bowling show during a quarantine pandemic, and that the cities would be burning down all weekend long, I just wouldn't have believed it. But yeah, so I think we'll leave that at that, and maybe we'll discuss that. Chad may want to weigh in on that, or we may go there today. I'm not sure where we're going to go exactly on today's show, but I just want all of our listeners to know that we're aware of what's going on. We're feeling it as well, and no matter where you sit, and on whatever side of all this you are, how you feel about everything, we respect how you want to deal with it, and we're glad you're watching this show. And hopefully today, talking some bowling and what we do on a daily basis will help you forget about some of that in some small way, because we do have a responsibility to somewhat entertain, and if you're going to give us your time, we deserve to give you a show. So that's what we're going to do here today. So let's get into the normal program here, which would be our Bowler X poll question. Matt, what is our Bowler X poll question from Friday? Checking in on it. Which of the following has impacted the sport of bowling the most? Evolution of equipment coming in at 79.3%, Matt. Wow, that's a huge number. Second place, not even close, evolution of human skill. New lane machines, 6.1%, and new lane services, 3.7%. Pretty eye-opening there. I hadn't reviewed the poll. I was a little busy over the weekend there, Matt.
Yeah, not surprised. Not surprised. And I think Chad would probably agree with the results of that poll. I think that I agree with it. The evolution of equipment has had an enormous impact on the sport of bowling, and probably will continuing forward. So I'm not exactly surprised by the result of this one.
And we're 2 months away from a big rule change coming up here regarding equipment.
Yeah, we are, and man, exciting times, exciting changes coming for the sport of bowling. So it'll be really really cool to see how that all plays out.
Sure will. What do you have for today's poll question? We like to surround our poll questions around our guests. So what do we have today? USBC
Yeah, and
related.
I came up with this poll question all by myself here. It says which the question today presented by Bowler X is which of the following is the most important member benefit offered by the USBC? Choice 1, certified averages. Choice number 2, tournaments. Choice number 3, rules. And choice number 4, equipment specifications. So
All right.
so
Get out
go
there.
ahead on find us on Twitter at InsideBowling and participate in our poll and let us know which benefit is most important to you.
Yep. A couple programming notes. Walter Ray will be on tomorrow. Walter Ray Williams Jr. will be on the show tomorrow. Looking forward to talking to him about my bowling game as we bowled together and crossed together in La Raza, and probably talked more than we ever had in our entire lives. So that'll be a big topic for tomorrow. And then my last thing I want to talk about before we get to our guest is last Monday we had Pete Weber on the program, and we talked a lot about wiffle ball. And
Sure
and I got a phone call yesterday from a gentleman that I've gotten to know here in Utah through Kim, through her workout friends and stuff. I got this phone call yesterday, Matt. He said, "Hey, we had a friend of ours that passed away suddenly, tragically, and we're all getting together to remember him. We play wiffle ball, and he used to play wiffle ball with us. And this guy in his backyard has a miniature Fenway Park, and everything is 33% of the distances at Fenway. And I went and played in this 20-person wiffle ball game over the weekend, and you may see how much sun I got.
Yeah, you are looking a little red there, Mike.
Dude, I am going to set up this golf net that I have in the backyard, and I'm going to start practicing my pitching because it looks like I'm going to get invited back. And I got to get my pitching game back, bro. I got to start building up some muscles and some arm strength because I'm going to go out and I'm going to tear it up. It's all about the pitching, Matt, and wiffle ball.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried here because you went and played soccer a couple weeks ago and you like tore your Achilles, and then you went and you played something else and you're like beat up your arms and something, and now you're getting into competitive wiffle ball. And I could just see this now, like Mike Flanagan doing this show when we come back with episode 41, like in an arm cast.
Oh yeah,
he like tore his
neck
rotator
brace,
cuff or something.
everything. Yeah, it's probably going to happen, but it was cool to get out this weekend, and I really appreciate that invite that I got. Okay, let's introduce our guest here today. Joining us today is the Executive Director of the United States Bowling Congress. He's also the host of the Friday Sport of Bowling show over on Sport of Bowling Facebook page, as well as their YouTube channel, the Bowl TV YouTube channel. Also simulcast on Bowl TV every single week, and I've been nice enough to be a guest on that show for the last 5 or 6 weeks or so. It's been a pleasure being on the show and having a relationship with this gentleman. And we're going to introduce him now from his office in Arlington, Texas. Let's bring in Chad Murphy. Good afternoon, Chad. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing all right. It was a crazy weekend around the country, but yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. I always like to say, you've made it win, and being on the probably what I believe might be the best show in bowling on a daily basis. I know I have arrived by being on your show, Mike. So, and Matthew, thank you. I'm a big fan of the show for sure.
Yeah, I guess I would ask you, Chad. That was very nice of you to say. Which shows did you enjoy the most? Because I know you listen to just about every one of them.
Well, I enjoy all of them. I mean, that's the for somebody that I'm into podcast and news and where I get my news and the things that come from that. So this expansion of people talking about bowling on a daily basis has been amazing. But Beef and Barnsey for sure, Sweep the Rack. I still listen to Lenny. I listen to any and all that's out there. Obviously, John Market Bowler's Journal. I try to get my information just like everybody else does. I like to say all information is good, but you guys have done a wonderful job. Pete's show last week was great for me. A lot of people know it because Pete's not a terribly big fan of Chad Murphy at times. But there's a picture of Pete in my office. There's also one of Dick in my office on the wall here. And so I'm a fan of bowling. In addition to being the ED at USBC. So anybody talking about bowling is good for me, but I do enjoy your show.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that, man, very much. And I appreciate the feedback you've given us over the weeks. It's helped us get better. You talk about, Pete Weber possibly, not being a big Chad fan. And that's the interesting thing about being someone in charge of things. Even myself. I mean, I've got guys out there that they're not Mike Flanagan fans, right?
Yeah, I'm not a Mike Flanagan fan.
No, he's not at all. And that's difficult. That's difficult because deep down you want to be liked by everybody, but at the same time you got to stick to your guns and your beliefs and your actions and what you've done. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think if you've got processes in place that allow you to, have good people around you and you get all the information and you make a good decision, you can stand behind those decisions. And so when people are critical, you also have to understand where their critical comes from. Even Pete and what he did at the U.S. Open. And, I've got a long history with Pete that's good. And that's where I choose to, think about it. And so him, making one comment doesn't necessarily bother me. And so I kind of wipe it off. I worked for a gentleman that shared with me at one point in time in my past that, and this was a direct quote, he said, "Hey, once you thicken up that skin, you're going to be really good at this business thing." And that was a number of years ago. And I found that to be very prophetic. And it's easy if you put the right people in the room and you've done the homework and done all the research. And then, you listen to everybody. And then usually the decision is right there. And so it's pretty easy to stand behind it.
Yeah. When you took the position, you came out of youth, the youth department there. You did a great job there. And then you came into this job. And from what I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went guns blazing. Like you came in guns blazing. Like, hey, you need to get in touch with me. You can send me an email. You can hit me up on Facebook. You were responding to comments out in the marketplace when people had their facts wrong. You were kind of correcting things and everything. And then you just went away for a period of time. And we talked about this a little bit on the interview that we did.
Yeah.
What seems like 10 years ago now, a couple months ago, I guess it was. But now you're back. It seems like you're back. I've seen you out in the limelight or in the bowling world more than we had seen you for a long period of time. How is that going for you?
Well, truthfully, I never left. I mean, I still respond to all emails and take all phone calls. You would still not believe some of the things that we get here. And so I never left from that capacity. What I left was my Facebook page. And I think that specifically was a place that, this world is very polarized, and decisions, people fall on both sides, and we can get into left and right and center. But if you see what, has happened across the country this weekend, it's a product of that same environment. I like to take a very human nature approach to it. I always say you can't beat human nature. And what you see, on your TV screens over the weekend is a very polarized country. There's a lot of pain in the world. And I just kind of take a human look at it. And it's hard not to be emotional about it and see some of the pain. Well, when you take that and you think about what was going on in the marketplace at that time, when I pulled out of Facebook, you're right. We had, been very aggressive in the space, and we had, taken a lot of information from that space and doing Q&As and all of that thing. But there was this element that had come into it that was not productive. And again, I say this, you can see some of the element from this weekend. There's a lot of protesting going on that is productive. And then there's this piece of looting and fireballing that isn't productive. And so it's tough sometimes, but it had become so unproductive that Facebook just wasn't a place for me to continue to work within. But I never really left. I got a call from a lady last week, and no one would really be aware of this, but she did a really wonderful job of explaining to me that we had done a terrible job of managing this pandemic, and that, May 1st with the tournaments, and then May 23rd, and then September, and junior gold being canceled, and it's almost like we didn't know what we were doing. And I tried to explain to her that we didn't, and then I don't know how you could know what you were doing, and that I didn't disagree with anything that she was saying. But then you think about that and what was going on Facebook at the time, the threats and things that were going on. It was just a good time to get away. But I've never really left it. But being back, if you will, in this space, it's a different medium, and these are opportunities to help educate and inform, and we like doing that. We've continued to do it through the places that we've done it since I've been here. But yeah, we were very aggressive in the beginning and took a more conservative approach there for a couple of years. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just see myself, like you and I, we've both realized through personality profiles and stuff that you and I are very, very alike. And that's one of the reasons why we resonate with each other. We're like magnets to each other. We both have our opinions. We don't agree all the time. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's just something that I feel like if I would have been put in that position for some reason, I may have taken the exact same approach. And that's why I wanted to find out a little bit more about how things are going. But I think things are going pretty good for you right now. The interview that we did, we looked at the comments from that. A lot of people really appreciated the perspective and the things that we went over. And then from there, you're doing your Friday show, and that's been really well received as well. We're getting into the summertime where a lot of people kind of back away from bowling and some of the numbers go down a little bit. But I love the fact that you're doing a show on Fridays with the USBC.
It's been fun, and I hope we're able to have it grow and have people understand. But our show, not that much different from yours. Yours is probably a little bit more fun. Ours is probably a little bit more serious because we're a business structure, but it's all good. I say it, all information is good. So if we can, inform and educate and process information and do it in a timely manner, I think it's a good thing as long as it's productive. And it has been so far. I think, there's still a lot of folks out there that, don't agree with a lot of the things that go on here. But the more opportunities we can to explain the why and the how, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah, I agree. We run an interactive program here, Chad, and I was looking at some of these questions coming in, and I think people do want to ask you some questions. So I will display these, Matthew, because some of this is going to be to try to lighten the mood a little bit. The first question that you're going to be very experienced to answer here, Chad, is the Black Widow ghost ball any good?
I don't know a lot of the individual balls these days, to be honest with you. I remember the Black Widow being a very good ball, but honestly, I don't know what the ghost ball is. So I'm at a little bit of a loss there. I remember Black Widow core. I remember Shell. I just don't know a lot of the new balls since I left the ball business. But I think there's a lot of companies that are putting out a lot of good product, and it's advancing technology. So I'm sure it is.
Okay, well, there's your answer there, Nick and Tiff Hernandez. There you go. Chad says it's probably a good ball because all the manufacturers make good products. I thought that was a cool question that came in. Yeah. And also that leads me to an idea that Matt and I would like to share with you, because we think you might be somebody that would want to be part of this. A couple of weeks ago, we did a fantasy draft for the St. Louis area for the St. Louis Masters.
Saw that. It's very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
And we had more people tune into that than any other show we've done.
Oh, wow.
Which is very, very interesting too.
Close. There were a couple shows where we piggybacked off some celebrities. So
simulcasting as well helped us on some programs. But we've got a new idea here, and would like to get your take and see if you would maybe potentially want to be one of the people that participate in our next fantasy draft.
Okay.
Matt, would you like to tell Chad what our idea is here?
I mean, I think you'd probably be better well-versed, but I'd be happy to tell Chad what the idea is here, Chad. So if there's one thing that bowlers love, it's talking about bowling balls. And it's talking about bowling balls over the course of time in the history of our sport. So what we
I'm in.
Okay, he's in. We're done. Good. Next question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
No, that's funny. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to have a fantasy draft where we have different captains and they draft their favorite bowling balls of all time from over the years.
The greatest bowling balls of all time fantasy draft. We're thinking Larry Lickstein. We're thinking maybe a Mike Machuga or yourself. We'd like to maybe get permission to maybe use like a Rob Gottschall.
Danny Wiseman, Brian O'Keefe, endless people here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to participate. Obviously, bowling balls are something that I've been passionate about all my life. There is a wonderful museum up in Omaha that Richie Stump, Abood, and Ted Bear, if you guys are ever interested, they've got an amazing amount of product, which really starts in the beginning and moves up to the advent of resin. And you walk through there and it makes you think about things. But as somebody that was in the ball business for a long time, but I also, I did bowl at one time, so I have my favorites from there too. But one of the things that I did was on the R&D side, product development, I would test all the products from the other companies. And so there's certainly a perspective there that, of balls that I enjoyed to throw that we launched, but you could also see the goodness from the other manufacturers too. But yeah, that sounds like fun. I'd love to participate. I wish somebody though would also, and not to, give you guys another idea, but if you want to, I'd still love to see a fantasy draft, a fairly large one that included not just today's PBA league, but all of it. If you think about all of the professionals that have played, what would teams look like if you were putting together a draft of, any and all? And the more teams that you have, obviously the deeper in the pool that it would be. But this PBA league thing over the last number of years, and of course we have the Hall of Fame and Museum downstairs, and you see the Bud teams and the beer teams that are down there, and it's interesting. And Mike, you'll remember that whole conversation about the greatest of all time that we went through. I think there's a draft there that could turn into, and I think it would be a good thing, into some arguments about certain players that you would be selecting at that time. But I think there's so many great things to talk about within our sport. I think that all those things would be fun.
Yeah, people just get really competitive over these drafts, and they love to analyze drafts for whatever reason. So you were just thinking strike while the iron is hot on that one.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Couple other comments coming in really quick, Matt. We've
go
got
ahead.
Vic Kurbowski says, Chad is an amazing man that truly cares and loves the sport. How about that one?
Thanks, Vic. I appreciate that. And it's certainly, the back part of that's certainly true. I'd leave it up to someone else to decide about the amazing man. But I do love the sport. I believe in it inherently and have lived it all my life.
Now, we've got another question coming in from someone that you know very well, a little bit of a different end of the gamut here, but this is a question related to the Open Championships and a serious question. And I don't know if you have an answer to it, but we're going to display it on the screen at this time. Coming in, ask Chad what the protocol is going to be for testing staff for COVID-19 at the 2020 USBC Open Championships and Women's Championship, and what will happen if a worker tests positive.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. We are working on a document that we've put a lot of time and energy into. It's in legal right now. We will publish that document soon, and it will cover everything you could possibly imagine, from plexiglass to testing on site. Folks come in, temperature. But there's some unique things about it too that are unique to our championships that have to be fully vetted out, including the ball weigh-in line and going to a touchless piece within that. So we've been working on it for quite a while, and it'll be published as part of that. It's not just the Open and Women's Championships; it's also our short duration events. But then we're also publishing a best practice into the marketplace for state and local tournaments. And so all of that will come in the short term, and it'll certainly be something that a lot of opinion and conversation takes place. But obviously, we want to have a safe environment that everybody can come to and compete and crown some champions. But at the same time, we've got to protect our staff, from this. I saw something interesting this weekend. I've been following, airports and TSA patterns and how many people are coming in, and that piece of business, even though we're opening up, that piece really hasn't expanded. I think, as of Saturday, there's 320,000 or so people that traveled against 2.2 million same day last year. And so when you think about somebody coming from New York to Reno to bowl at our championships, we've got to create a safe environment, and we're working on it, but not quite there yet. So good question.
Yeah, and the follow-up from Jeff, I'm sure, is the exact same answers. And what happens if one of the competitors turns out to have COVID-19?
Yeah, that we're a little unique. And again, I'm not sure exactly where we're going to land yet. The competitor side is unique because technically they'll only be in for 2, maybe 3 days, where if you see some of the things that are going on in Major League Baseball or the NBA, going to compete in this bubble down in Florida, they're in for a couple months. And so even our short duration, which is, a Masters, it's 7-8 days versus Open, Women's Championships, which is just 2 days. It is a little bit different, but we're going to have to be very careful about how people come in and out of the championships. There's a better than average chance that we wouldn't see someone, come in that had COVID before they got there, or even afterwards. And then how would we quarantine after the fact? And so we've got a lot of people working on it. We're not quite there yet, but I would certainly entertain those questions after we publish the document, which is probably still a couple weeks away.
Awesome. And then one other question that came in was, now that reopening is happening, will you revisit some of the tournament cancellations and possibly reschedule?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about there. Obviously, the Open and Women's Championships have moved to the fall, and so we're planning on running those. The PWBA cancellations are really a postponement, but there'll be a larger announcement because we're deeper into the schedule now. And so that conversation hasn't changed. Calendar's still not on our side. The season, generally speaking, will be canceled, and then we'll look to the fall to possibly hold an event or two. And how that looks will even be interesting if we can pull it off. Masters, Senior Masters, Super Senior Classic, all still being worked through as possibility for the fall at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I think, Mike, I think it's time. I think, and Chad as well, obviously, I think it's time to switch gears here a little bit. We're getting into some nitty gritty questions, but when we introed the show, Mike was talking about his new obsession for wiffle ball, and you chimed in here in our private little chat head here and said, "Hey guys, we have our list of questions, but if there's one thing that I could talk about extensively, it's wiffle ball. What's your history with wiffle ball, and what can you tell us about the game?"
I can tell you my slurve is unhittable. It is not a 12-6. It comes right to left across. And so, Mike, I would question whether you could hit that. But at the same time, 205 West 30th, Hutchinson, Kansas, was a home that I grew up in. It was a wonderful place. I lived in my grandparents' home with my mom and my brother. It was also had an unbelievable wiffle ball field in the backyard. It was called the Murph Dome. And we held wiffle ball daily in the summer, to the point where we also had to put up lights on the edge of the house so we could have night games. And so that was the place to be growing up, was our wiffle ball field. But the cool part of it was the way it was constructed. I won't do a great job explaining it, but if you think about a diamond, there was a pretty short porch in left and a little deeper in right. And so, home runs were a part of it. But we had a blast growing up with my buddies, Chris Nelson and David Neal, and a whole bunch of different folks in our neighborhood, to the point when my grandmother didn't know who was going or coming at different times. But it was all day, most summers during the day, that we weren't mowing yards to try to pick up some gas money playing wiffle ball. And then obviously we played baseball as well too. But wiffle ball is a very happy place for me in my past, with the friendships that we had in that small town. But I enjoyed listening to you and Pete talk about it. Driveways, you can pop up a wiffle ball game just about anywhere you want. That's the beauty of it. At Junior Gold there, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a wiffle ball game at Junior Gold, which was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and I have a couple follow-ups to this. We're doing this series of videos right now with Mike Shady on how to be a better bowler and improve your bowling. I think maybe we should start an instructional series with you, Chad, on how to throw a slurve, and you can take us through the technique behind this right to left motion that you get going here on the wiffle ball.
Yep, and it's all pressure in those fingertips.
So do you put more pressure on the middle finger?
Both at different times. You got to mix it up, and then the speed that comes with it.
Yeah,
and again, it's all getting it in, at a hitter and then across the plate. But it was a lot of fun. And if you had those guys on, they'd tell you I couldn't pitch at all. There was no heater. It was all movement, including a dig knuckleball on the wiffle ball too. That was pretty effective. But it didn't come very fast. So when it got hit, it went a long ways.
Isn't there like a field behind headquarters there? Isn't there like an open area back there?
We could do it a couple different ways here for sure.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you what, man. I think you should take up like a little lunchroom, little donation pool there, and I think you should build something like this, and we'll come down and live stream the first one on both.
That's where I was going with this. I was saying I was going to go in a little bit different direction here. You said your slurve was unhittable, and Mike kind of gave you this like tilted dog head look. I could smack that out of the park, no problem. So I'm thinking maybe we almost have like a 1v1 battle here. Mike said he's going to work on his pitching. We'll go a couple innings, switching back and forth, and we'll live stream it. And I think, if you're asking me, I think the viewership would be incredible to watch Chad Murphy throw this slurve and back Mike Flanagan off the plate a little bit.
I'm going to hit him 3 or 4 times before I get it. But I would practice. But it's funny that we're having this conversation because our podcast that we do with Tony Franklin, they've got an argument going on there about where Derek Hartnell can throw an 80-mile-an-hour fastball. And I'm one of 3 people that think he can, I think, after listening to their piece this weekend. But I sent them a text this weekend. But these competitions are great. They're good conversation. But it was a fun time in my life, as it sounded like it was for you, Mike, and also Pete. But I didn't know that you were going out this weekend and getting 20 guys. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, this field was incredible. I got this invite to this hidden gem of a 5-acre lot in far west Utah, and I went out there, and it was mini Fenway, man. I mean, it was the same dimensions and everything. So
how did you play, Mike? Did you
not well? I was 2 for 5 with 2 walks, and I couldn't even pitch. Like I couldn't, because you got to hit this thing consistently.
Yeah, I saw it. It looked like the back of a chair almost, just like.
Yeah, so I'll be practicing if I get invited back, which I think I have an invite back. So.
All right. Well, we'll have to make sure to take some video to put on the show next time. This way, we can show everybody how Mike Flanagan is looking out on the field.
And I registered InsideWiffleBall.com, by the way. I own that now.
Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? He's probably in the middle of an at. Yeah, he's in the middle of an at bat, and he's like, "Hold up, time!" And he pulls out his phone. And he's like, "I got an idea."
Got to process this.
That's fine.
Yeah, Prickles, if you're watching, I registered 10thinning.com.
That's funny. Chad,
and Rick Ramsey, don't go run some sort of side wiffle ball tournament next to mine, okay, Rick? I know you're watching. All right, let's just come over. We'll see how we can get you to work with us.
This is great. I love this, setting everybody straight. A little collaboration.
It's amazing to me when you really think about this stuff, right? We have a company picnic every summer, and one of the things that we've done there in the past is, we take our staff and try to have a day where they bring in their families. And so we did, one of the things that we did was Bowler's Ed. We put out the Bowler's Ed carpets. And so we had a tournament with everybody, parent and child, if you will. There's just so many different ways and so many different games that can take place within, what we do as a sport as well. And so it's a lot of fun to do some of those other things.
Yeah, and speaking of bowling tournaments, Chad, you used to be quite the bowler yourself. I know you've made some quite notorious appearances at some world team challenges, and you've won a couple.
World Team Challenge was a lot of fun. We won 2 of the grand championships, and we won 4 of the regional events. But I also bowled 1 as part of Team USA, so that was a fun time in my life. I really enjoyed those tournaments. They were really hard, and I mean, really hard.
Yeah, if you watch the YouTube replays, people missing the head pin both directions, very hard to hit the pocket. Do you have any time to bowl for yourself now?
I had a little, not a lot of people know it, but I rebuilt my lower back about 10 years ago. I've got 2 rods. I think it's 6 pins and 6 screws and 11 pins. And so I completely rebuilt my lower back. And so as Mike asked me on our interview, it drives me nuts not to bowl well. And so the only thing that I'm healthy and I could, but I need to spend enough time to practice to do it well. And I don't like it to do it poorly. And so I bowl the Open Championships every year. When I can, we have a league here at the training center that I participate in once in a while, but not a lot. When I first came down here, I bowled league out at ULIS, but I wish I had time to bowl more. But it's more about the physical than it is, and the mental than it is the time. Really, I've got time to do it, but I do miss it. I always say, one of the outlets for bowling is, it's social and it's friends, but there's a competitive element to it too. But my own championship scores have gotten so soft at this point that it's very frustrating. So I'm looking forward to, at some point in time, putting the work in. Who did I listen to this? Oh, John Burke was talking about the senior tour, and I'm 48. And so listening to John talk about the senior tour made me wonder if, as ED of USBC, could I bowl the senior masters? And so I did have that thought on my brain, because that would be something that would certainly motivate me to practice and do well.
Bro. Well, Inside Bowling will sponsor you in that event. Hey, this is a done deal. A done deal. I'll get you in touch with a couple coaches too. I'll give you Rod Ross's number. You may or may not know this guy. Shady. We'll get you hooked up with this guy.
I appreciate the help there.
Yeah, we'll get you turned around. Yeah.
I obviously can't. I can't cash, but I wondered if I could bowl, because that one would be fun for me. So then I thought the Senior U.S. Open, because that one I could bowl, but. I'm not sure. Being 48 years old, 50 sounded like a lot of fun. Just listening to John Burke talk about it the other day made me think about it a little bit. But I miss the competitive side, and I like to think that if I put a little work in, I'd still know where it was going. But when I bowl the Open Championships, it makes me think that maybe none of that is true.
Yeah, and hey, I think it was a week ago yesterday, was 5 years on Swanee. And I watched that video again. Kim actually picked it up and shared it and said, "Hey, it was 5 years ago today." Good on Kim to be able to pick that up and remember that and be paying attention to the media that we have. And when I was growing up watching the Ebonite Nitro R's, in my age range, that's when I was really heavy into bowling. I mean, I was cleaning my bowling balls at my house 2 to 3 times a week before I went bowling even. And watching you guys bowl, like I remember going to the Landmark Lanes, and I got one person's autograph at Landmark Lanes on my lens. There were the purple and teal ones. What were those? The special edition, some lens special editions.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I got one autograph, and you probably wouldn't even know who I got the autograph from. But one guy wanted on my shoe, and it was Lonnie Wallachek of all people, right? How crazy is that? And I walked up to him. I said, "Would you sign my shoe?" And he goes, "Me?" I said, "I love watching your World Team Challenges." And he goes, "You're kidding." And he signed my shoe, right? And you bowl with Lonnie. And I remember the Ebonite Nitro R's, and what a great team that was. And with Swanee, passing away way too soon with the strikeout sarcoma foundation stuff that he started. We talked with Pete last Monday about this. I see you bowl on that, and you were a great bowler. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You were a great bowler on that team. Thoughts on Swanee? And
was that them, Mike?
That was them.
Yeah, that's the women's shoes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I saw Barnes pop up there. I actually sent Lonnie a text this morning. It was a lot of fun. Just a couple things. I'll be brief, and I don't know if you can see it behind me, but yeah, I'm not going to do a great job. But there's a little tribute to Swanee that's on my office here, and it was actually something amazingly that Spencer Robarge sent me. And I don't know if you not everybody will know who Spencer is, but most folks will. He won our U12 division at junior gold. He's from same area as Swanee, and after he won that, he came over and he had one of Swanee's bracelets for a strikeout sarcoma on his hand, and he said he put it on top of the trophy, and he said, "Hey, I did this for Sean," and that hangs on my wall today as a reminder of him, and what a wonderful. But those times were great. Not a lot of people will remember it, but my start in that tournament came on a completely different team, and we bowled in on some amazing teams before really that team was formed. But I bowled with Chris Barnes, Steve Klumpkin, Danny Broadway, and Joe Vito on the first television show. On that, Chris had and Steve had asked me to bowl. I'm not sure who. I'm not kidding. They had somebody and they fell off, and so they asked me to bowl as like the 19th choice. And then we bowled through the Ebonite piece. Lonnie, Billy, and I bowled with Ron Williams and Jason Couch in one in Edmond. We bowled with Brunswick with Johnny Petraglia and a gentleman named Dwayne Fisher, who a lot of people won't remember, but Dwayne bowled 770 2 blocks in a row and we missed the cut. So anyway, those tournaments were a lot of fun. I appreciate you bringing up Swanee. It always gives me a chance to talk about it. Miss him dearly, love him to death. But he's still here, in some ways too. But that was a lot of fun. He struck us to a lot of those titles, and the rest of us spared as much as we could to keep up. So, but those were fun times.
I didn't know we were going to talk about your bowling this much today.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah,
we never know where this show is going to go, but I figured I would ask, what's your greatest accomplishment on the lanes? I've never asked you this.
I don't know. I really hope that we were, going to talk about some other things, because my bowling is not something that I really like to spend a whole lot of time talking about. But I won a few sweepers, at the roller, if not many eliminators that I was, really enjoyed. Made a few runs at those tournaments. One at the Super Hoinky that I remember, but most of the, wins, if you will, were with others, with teams. And Barnes and I won a tournament in Texarkana, I think, 1 year, doubles tournament, where we beat Tony Franklin and Lonnie in the finals. And Chris and I rode down with Lon And so Tony went back to Dallas, Lon rode back with us. So those are the things that you remember that are fun, in addition to the bowling. But I miss those competitive days, but really just the fun, the people. So much of this sport for me has been being with others and being supported by others and supporting others. And it's just been fun to watch over time. You think about how I started bowling, and then when I got into the pro shop business, and then I got into teaching and then tour repping, there has just been an incredible amount of fun through others, and some of it through failure. There's a lot of bad bowling in there too.
Speaking of failure, I wanted to go in the opposite direction here. What's your most embarrassing bowling story?
Oh my gosh. I told that story, I'm not sure where, but my first, I think, PBA event, I was red leader the first day, and Del Ballard, pointed out that I was red leader. I didn't even know what red leader was, but I was red leader that day. And Del's, he still talks about it sometimes. But, when you are a, fish in a certain pond, and then you go into the big pond and you're the little fish, you probably think you're a little better than you are. And I know I got a pretty humbling, look at that in bowling some tour stops. When I started tour rep, and I realized I wasn't good enough to play out there. But we had a lot of fun bowling all over this country. From New York at the Buddy Russell, down in Texas, Super Hoinky. We bowled all over this country, which gave me some chops. But the one thing that it did that was really special for me was meeting all the people that I did, developing, the relationships that I still have a lot of them today. And I would tell you that's when you say, hey, what's your best moment bowling? It was meeting a lot of those people and having them be able to say that they're still friendships I hold today.
One of the other things that is something that I believe in, probably because I'm biased here, but I like it when big bowling companies, whether it's the USBC or the PBA or Storm or Brunswick or Motive or any of these big companies, right? I always like it when there's a diehard bowler at the helm. It's just a preferred thing for me, right? I just like that. And there's been a lot of people who've sat in your chair that haven't necessarily been big time bowlers. How has you being a bowler, do you think, how has that helped you do your job?
Well, I think it's inherent, right? I think it's, it certainly has given an advantage to me understanding the sport. I learned so much in the pro shop business that, doubled up when I was a ball rep, and then, tripled up, if you will, when I worked for the manufacturer. And so just learning through all of that, but, understanding why the 6-pin goes around the 10 and doesn't knock it over is something you wouldn't think that much about here. But as I was doing that, I also was, attending my local association banquet in Wichita, Kansas at the time, so I understood the association business and, city tournaments and state tournaments. And I didn't bowl a lot of state tournaments, but the whole tournament piece is another piece of what we do here. But I would tell you the number one, advantage to being a bowler is that pretty much at any time, I can make a few phone calls and get a bunch of bowlers in here and put them in a room and ask them what they think about a given project or really a problem that needs fixing. And I think that's the biggest piece is to know. I mean, when we brought those 13 pro shop guys in a few years ago, to be able just to call those guys and say, hey, what, you guys got time to come in here and spend 2 days with us talking about, bowling balls? I think that's the biggest benefit is to really have those relationships to be able to bring folks in to help us. Because I don't have all the answers, but we're looking for them. And we've, really expanded, from, maybe 1 or 2 people working on a project to an entire, group of people working on a project. Same thing with the Open Championships, really back in the youth department. Same thing with junior gold. I remember the first time we had those, 11 junior gold coordinators in here. It was just, we learned so much by having them here. But I think that all comes from me being a bowler and understanding it, that there's other bowlers that want to help as well. And so we've capitalized on that as well.
Yeah, and from me being a bowler, there's a lot of times that I wake up in the morning with whatever roles or positions that I have, and I feel like I have to educate myself better because I am just a bowler. I'm not deeply educated. I don't have a master's degree. I don't even have a regular degree, you know? And I feel like I always have to learn more things that, so I'm just not labeled a bowler. And I know you like to read a lot of books. You like to pay attention to a lot of different things. And why do you do that? Is it because you're a bowler and you feel like you have to help shape yourself even better? Why the passion for all these book readings and trying to learn different philosophies and ways to do better in your job?
Well, I think I wasn't formally educated, right? When the people ask me, "Hey, what's your degree?" and I say, "Well, it's in bowling," and so the books are an avenue for me to learn that goes beyond bowling, but it applies to bowling. It applies to the business of bowling. It applies to the business of a governance structure like USBC. It applies to life, being a human being. And so the books for me have always been an outlet to learn. I've attended a lot of seminars. I had a lot of mentors that were really invested in me and wanted to give me opportunities because I think they knew I wasn't formally educated, but that I did have this basis for knowledge. Back to how that applies for you. I mean, anybody that's throwing a ball down the lane and watches it, skid and then get to the back end and then turn over and, leave a ring in 10 and then think you threw it good and want to know why, right? Well, then you get into the physics of it. You get into the ball motion of it, and you get into how the ball contacts the lane, and then you get into the having an engineer help us with that. But the books are just an outlet to being more informed about things that maybe I wasn't formally educated on to begin with. But even if I had gone and really spent a lot of time on my education, I enjoy the books. I enjoy learning. I have learned so much through this journey, through others, the people around me. It happens every day here. So the books are just an avenue to that.
Yeah, you guys have a book club there, from what I understand, that you pass around books, and it's part of the culture there at USBC.
Yeah, the year Christmas gift to the staff, I pick out a book, I think every year except for one. And there's a book club that's going through that book this year. It was Leaders Eat Last. I think it was Good to Great. I read an interesting book from Gene France recently, that failure is not an option. There's just so much to be learned and gathered through others. But one of the things I talk to my kids about all the time, because they play baseball and basketball. I mean, all of these are their success is through failure. It comes through failure, and so when you think about how to do that, but more people being interested in learning is a good thing, and if we can do it collectively, it's even better.
What's the greatest thing that you've done working in Arlington? What are a couple things maybe that you remember that you're really proud of?
Well, honestly, I mean, the first thing there is, I haven't really done anything. And so that's my, pat answer to that question. We've done a lot here, but, it comes through our staff and working with our volunteers in the marketplace. We've, had successes, we've had failures. The successes we don't talk about a lot because we live them, right? I mean, when you think about, an association leadership academy that was developed that people, for the most part, a lot of our bowlers wouldn't necessarily even see, but having the opportunity to educate our association so that we can be better as an association and serving our members, that's something that came out of mothballs for us. And we put a group together and started working on it, and it's been an incredible success here. Our tournaments, being able to, look at them and the size they were when we came in, when somebody gets a job like this, there's a reason for it. Somebody else leaves or moves on, but maybe it wasn't as successful. And so, but there's a lot of history and tradition here too. You think about 116 years of an Open Championships, that comes with a lot of responsibility. So I don't know that there's one, all being accomplishment. Back in the youth area, there were several things that we've done, as a group with our youth committee that were a lot of fun to be a part of that are still going today. But I personally haven't done much here except for trying to put the right people in the room so that we can be more successful for the marketplace and for our members.
Yeah, and speaking of membership, I've seen all over social media, I mean, for going on probably 15 years now. Why should I buy a USBC card when they took the rings away, right? Okay, now I want to say that, and I'm kind of laughing about this, right? Because it just doesn't. That statement has been said so many times, and it just doesn't make sense to me. So if I were just to ask you the direct question, and you had the opportunity here to just tell people, why should I be a member of the United States Bowling Congress? What's your answer there?
Rules, standards of the game. I mean, that it's really that simple. The process that we go to manage a rule book and the legislative piece of business and something becoming a rule is the responsibility of every member. And without the rules and the standards, it would just be chaos. I think we've seen some of that this weekend. That has been disheartening. But I think the rules and the standards. Yeah, you can get a certified average, the ability to bowl in tournaments. There's all of these great things that a member is afforded by purchasing a $25 or so membership. But the rules and the standards will live forever, and they will evolve too. When you think about equipment specs and bowling balls, and the length of the lane, I don't think is going to change in some of those pieces, but it's the standard and the rules that is the basic principle for the entire organization.
Yeah, and speaking of rules, a follow-up question. We had a question come in from the chat. What typically drives or initiates rule changes? For example, weight holes or lane oil requirements.
Yeah, it can come from anywhere, and that's the beauty of it. Any member can put forward legislation by September of every year for consideration. The weight hole was a product of us really, researching the sport when I first came in. And our team got kind of organized here. There was a, large, piece of the marketplace. And again, not to use, left, right, and center, but in our game, we have, traditionalists, we have people who are more progressive, and then we have, the folks that kind of land in the middle. I believe very much in our sport currently and love it. The strategy that goes into it, the thinking, what these kids are learning today versus what we learned when we were, 12 to 18 is enormous for them to be competitive and do well. But the process of that is just, through ideation and then research and then data collection and then, seeing what we can do. We set out to kind of see where we were at and what we should be doing. And when we came out, through the end of the process, we put a new spec in for oil absorption and we eliminated the weight holes. Not to really roll back technology, but to try to slow down the future progression of the technology. And so that's where that came from. But it was a, large swath of people that had come into the building through different groups that landed on those decisions.
I equivalate being a USBC member to just, number one, it's the right thing to do. Number two, every single year to drive a motor vehicle, no matter what state you're in, you either got to pay personal property tax or you have to pay a registration fee to be able to drive your car around, right? And in bowling, I feel like that's what the USBC is. But in addition to that, there's a lot of strobe light, really cool things that happen at the USBC that provide platforms and events and things that you can get some entertainment out of as well. So I've always been a USBC member and will always be one. It's disheartening for me to see folks taking it to what's in it for me today in regards to I pay this much money and I can get this much back. That's really not what it's about at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective because I think you're right. I also, when you really think about this in totality and how the whole thing, progresses together, it's a rough get sometimes because a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't, I'm a lifetime bowler that grew up in my grandfather's bowling center that bowled youth leagues, tournaments all the way through, to some PBA events. And I didn't know how wide or deep the offering that USBC offers its members is until I worked inside this building. And I'm not sure what to equate that to, but when you think about, something like Team USA or equipment specs or the, 6 people we have in rules adjudicating or mediating a rules dispute, customer service, membership association, managing, 1,600 associations across, there's just so much here. But I had no idea that it was here. So we don't really have a direct expectation that, somebody in, say Wichita, Kansas would know all of that. But we know it's our job to service it. And so we just continue to do that and try to get more people to understand all of the things that go on here that are good for bowling, but also important for bowling. And I do think it's the right thing to do, but and a lot of people won't completely get this part, but we're also the largest membership organization of the 51, governing bodies with USOC. We're the biggest, and I think that's a credit to our members, the local bowling centers that have supported it. I always say all bowling's local, and we, even this media piece, the digital piece that we're all engaged in, and Matthew, I've heard you say a couple times, and I appreciate it because it gives me the opportunity about saying how far behind we are at some of this in the past, and I think it's true. But really, bowling is a locally owned and operated, community-based activation and sport, right? And so when you think of that, was this their larger piece for somebody to talk about digitally? And so now it's just evolving, but mostly within the more elitist group within bowling, which is the PBA and the PWBA and at the national level. But really, our basis for the organization is that customer that bowls league, sometimes 4 times a week, and that's pretty cool. It really is.
Yeah, a couple more questions coming in here for you, Chad. And I also think that in regards to the whole USBC membership or whatever, I just want to reiterate again that people should just buy the membership cards because there's a lot of great stuff going down there. I've toured that campus. I've seen what you guys do, and I wish everybody had the same opportunity to just fly down there and check everything out. But a couple more questions here really quick. Question here from Roy says, does the USBC national management level promote from the local USBC people available for job positions, or do you look at overall job market for people in senior positions at the USBC? Our careers page at bowl.com is open to anyone that would like to be a part of it. Can you pop that back up there again, Mike? Because I want to be specific to his question. Yep. And so our job searches are similar to any search that any company would do. Local USBC people available for job descriptions. I'll give you a direct example of that one. So David Fields, who is our regional manager for the Southeast, if you will, he was an association manager for down in Houston. And so the answer to that question is yes. Roger Petrin is a regional manager who was a bowler at Wichita State and had done a few other things. David Prang, same thing, local association person. So yes, there is some of that, if you will, where people do come in through the local associations. With what we're doing with center certification over the next few years, we'll be looking for locals to fill some of those positions. And so the simple answer is yes, but there are other positions that in some cases wouldn't come from the local association or could, depending on the second career. A lot of folks that work with our local associations are volunteers, so they have a main job and then they volunteer with our local. And so when you go to find somebody to write code in IT, do you have a code writer that knows bowling? And that's a good thing if we can do that. And we have a couple of those folks that are here. But we also, have that other group that probably doesn't have any bowling experience. But our process of hiring is the same as any company. We post and then we hire the most qualified applicant. Yeah, and if somebody wanted to try to find a job, not necessarily right now because of what we're going through in the world, but when jobs start to become available, where do they go? Bowl.com, and there's a careers section down at the bottom of the homepage. Cool. Adam Barta here, one of your biggest fans, comes in and says, thank you for your leadership, keeping the focus on making bowling bigger and better. Your position requires a very thick skin, and I applaud your ability to stay on track. And then he follows up with this question right here, which is, when your time is up at USBC, what do you want to be best known for? What type of legacy? Adam, thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys bowl at the Open Championships in the fall. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate the kind words. I don't spend too much time thinking about the legacy piece. I really don't. I said 2 things when I came in that I've repeated over and over again, is that we really don't want to speak negatively about the folks that came before us, and we don't want to leave it for the next group. And so we manage the business
like it's going to be here 20 years from now. And we think if we'll make decisions on the long-term best interest of bowling, as opposed to the short term, that we'll be better off. And so that's just kind of how we've gone about it. But the legacy piece is really for somebody else. But I hope that whatever, legacy, does come from it is that it's a product of our team here, the staff here, as opposed to any one person, because it takes a lot of people thinking about this stuff all the time to really be successful. And we're successful here because of a large group of people, as opposed to one person.
Okay, we're getting ready to be about out of time here. I'm going to send it over to Matt for a final question. I'll have one, and we'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, Chad, more of a little bit on the more personal side. Who do you lean on for advice and for guidance when things start to get hard?
Everybody.
Besides Mike Flanagan.
Yep. Everybody. I lost one of those people recently when Bob Reed passed away a few months ago. He was somebody that I learned a lot from that I didn't know I was learning from at the time, but he's somebody that I spoke to fairly frequently. But the answer to that question very directly is everybody. When you think about, having Frank DeSocio at BPA as a resource, or Pat Sinello at Cubic AMF as a resource, or Corey Dykstra at Brunswick as a resource, there's just so many resources within the industry. But then dig down a little bit deeper and think about all the folks that we've brought in: bowlers, pro shop operators. My job has become easier because everyone else has been so helpful. We've looked to people that worked at ABC and USBC at one time before as sources for information. Personally, of course, I look to and listen to the people around me, but our staff here as well. We've got a wonderful staff here that's really are passionate bowling warriors. But the industry as a whole has been so helpful in trying to move things forward that it's a wealth of knowledge. As long as we're willing to be open to the ideas, which we are, that come from the marketplace, and really discuss them and move forward with the good ones.
My final question: the current state of the world right now. If a bowler's watching this right now, what should they do to help support bowling?
Just be yourself and keep bowling. Just really learn, and that's a tough question, Mike, because everybody has their own individual beliefs about bowling within bowling, right? And so I think if we can keep dialogue going about what bowling needs, it'll push us and everyone to do better. Work with your local bowling centers, work with your local associations, get involved in both of those two places, and thinking about what's best for the business. And the piece that's most important within that business is the sport. And so how do we make the sport a bigger part of the culture of a business that is responsible for putting food on the plate for families. But just be yourselves, but be thinking about the bigger picture when you can, and that being how the sport will thrive long term.
Cool. Any closing thoughts for you before we let you get out of here?
I just say thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. As I always say, I wish we could spend less time talking about my bowling and more about others' bowling, but I know it always comes up. But I would just say to everybody out there, I know there's a lot of distress in the world, and this weekend was really emotional and tough, but please take a human look at it and take care of each other. And we're really looking forward to having more bowling centers open up over the next few months, and looking out to what's going to happen over the next year. One of my favorite, all we have is what's in front of us. And if we'll think about that moving forward, we'll be better off. These things that are happening, this COVID-19, there's experts working on it, and health and doctors, and we're just focused on what bowling will look like through it, but then after it, because all of the great things that were there about bowling are still going to be true when all of this is over. And then we look forward to that. So be safe, stay healthy.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man. We appreciate the relationship too, on and off the air. We really do.
Thanks, man. You guys be good. Have a good Monday.
All right.
Take care. You too.
That's Chad Murphy from Arlington, Texas, at the United States Bowling Congress from his office. Your thoughts on today's show, Matt?
Just another great show. It was nice to see a little different side of Chad. I didn't know he had a nasty slurve, so that was a cool thing to learn about him. I would
Yeah.
love to see you in the batter's box against him and see if you could make contact and send one over the fence. Not sure, Mike. I gotta say right now, if I was a betting man, I'd be betting on Chad's slurve.
Oh, definitely, because I gotta work on my upper body, dude. I really gotta work on my upper body, and this motivated me yesterday. This 2 for 5 and 2 walks isn't gonna cut it. I didn't even come close to hitting the ball over the green monster and left. It just didn't happen. But I'm gonna get there. Working on my tan. We've only got 4 shows left, and I've been white as a ghost on every single show. Now I finally got a tan, and we're going to shut the thing down for a while.
Yep.
Don't forget, everybody, you can contact us at media@InsideBowling if you want to write us and tell us what we should do with the show moving forward, whether it's once a week, every day. You want us to come on the weekends. You want us to do 365 days a year show. I'll dress as Santa Claus on Christmas. Whatever you want. We will try to figure out what we want to do for you. We've got a lot of other things that we're working on behind the scenes that are other products and other things digitally that we want to work on that we're doing. So we're working hard, and I've been really tired. But we're mowing through it. I'll tell you, next week, no shows. I'm actually looking forward to that. And I don't mean that to be just to piss off anybody in our audience or anything like that, but I'm looking forward to hitting the reset button. And when we do come back, coming back better than ever. But again, I want to thank Chad for coming on the show today. He believes in me, and he believes in Inside Bowling, and he believes in our entire group. I believe that they've tried to hire both of us at one point in time, and they'd like to have us on their team. The stars don't align at this particular time, but you never know. One day down the road, Chad might be working with us, or we might be working with him one day, and you just never know in this business. Mike Judy told me a long time ago when I took a job with Storm. I saw him at the proprietor's company. He goes, one day we'll, you never know, we might be working together. And I was young and naive. I said, oh no, I'm going to be with Storm for the rest of my life. Maybe one day you'll work over here. Right. Well, you know what? About 4.5 years later, there I am in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And I walk right into Mike Judy's office and I said, how the hell did this happen? So that's what happens in bowling, Matthew.
Yeah. Same thing happened with us, Mike. I saw you the last day of Junior Gold, like 3 years ago. And we were hanging out, and we were just sitting there chatting. And you're like, "Hey, man, let's go out to lunch sometime. This will be my way of treating you for when you come on board and you work with me in the future."
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, almost exactly, here I am shooting this vlog series with Mike Flanagan for 10 days and hanging out, and now we're good friends. So
yeah, and you pay it forward. And I just took a Mike Judy trick right out of the back pocket.
It's one of those things.
These ideas and things that I do, I don't come up with any of it. I just hang out with the right people, the smartest people in the room, and then I just take everything that they've done and I apply it into one person, and I look like a genius.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we've been talking about this throughout the course of the show, is that they're ridiculous things, and if they work, you look like a genius, and if they don't, well, of course they didn't, because they were ridiculous to begin with.
Exactly. It's when you make a calculated thing that makes sense and it doesn't work out is when you get buried in this industry. I've learned that, and I don't ever put myself in that position. And the few times that I have, oh my God, dumpster fire for me. But hey, we want to thank everybody for watching our program today. Tomorrow, we're going to have another GOAT on, Walter Ray Williams Jr. I am really looking forward to getting to know Walter because we'll be getting to know him for the first time together, not only our audience, but us as well. So that's going to be a good show. And we'll be announcing the rest of our guests this week. We do have all of our guests lined up except for Friday's guest. We're just waiting for confirmation on that. We are going to have a pro shop show on Thursday. We're going to have 3 pro shop operators on, and we're going to talk about what's happened with the pandemic, what they've seen. One's an online e-tailer. You may know which one that is, one that we're in business with, bowlerx.com, and we'll have some others on as well. But really looking forward to the rest of the week. And we mean it, 40 episodes, man. This has been a grind, but we're happy to do it for the people. And we'll be back tomorrow with a great show.
See you, everybody.